Ladies and gentlemen, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. Welcome to the Lambom Show, and I'm your host, Lambert Mbom, coming to you from Washington, D.C. Thank you for joining and stay tuned. Given we are broadcasting on Facebook and YouTube, I would like to make an appeal that you share this broadcast on Facebook and to subscribe to my YouTube channel. Today's edition of our program is a discussion on a book recently authored by Dr. Kingsley Enonjang, a pharmacist who also serves currently as the national president of Sacred Heart College ex-students in the United States, known as SHESA USA. The title of the book is Trevor Goes to Africa. There is a subtitle which we are going to explore. Growing up in Cameroon and attending Sacred Heart College and other colleges around, we read books like The Good Foot by Sandeba, The White Man of God, but we also read Oliver Twist, isn't it? Oliver Twist, Adventures of Huckleberry Finn, and many others. And we know that these books left an impression on us. Many of us still remember phrases, passages from these books because they enthralled us, and left a lasting impression. We all know that knowledge is power, and reading is key. We become what we read. And as parents, we are also currently asking ourselves, what books are our kids reading? Yesterday, a friend of mine shared an experience. His two daughters, he's here in the United States, living in Bowie, but his two daughters are currently studying in Holy Cross in Yaoundé. And he was telling me that they really loved the experience. And I was kind of curious. Kids who have left the United States and they are studying in Cameroon and they are loving the experience. And this brought me to the title or the experience of this book written by Dr. Kingsley, because it talks about a 9-year-old kid who lives in the United States and travels to Cameroon in a village or city called Ekona and gets to Ekona and contracts measles. And then there is much more to it. But before we get into it, I want to welcome Dr. Kingsley and say thank you, Dr. Kingsley, for taking on this challenge. Thank you for coming on our platform. And I want you to say a few words, introduce yourself, and tell us a little bit about what you do.
Hello to all your viewers. I feel really honored to be invited to the show, and heard about it. I've watched a few other interviews before, and I feel privileged to be invited to it. Like you rightly said, my name is Kingsley Enonjang. Grew up in Cameroon, came to the US to study. Went to school here, graduated as a pharmacist some 10, 11 years ago. Been a practicing pharmacist, and yeah, I started writing, I don't know, maybe 11 years ago as well. And eventually there was a need. I saw a need in the market, and having kids myself, I decided to take that step right away. Right now, I live in North Carolina, have 3 kids, and we're loving the experience and hoping to take my kids to Cameroon once things get better back there. That's me.
So, Dr. Kingsley, before we get into the book itself, I mean, a pharmacist writing a book, that's kind of a strange experience. And I'm wondering how you came to that. How do you balance up being a pharmacist and being an author?
Well, you see, writing is something that anybody can do. You don't have to, there's no definition as to who's supposed to write and who's not. Um, I'd say it comes mostly from my experiences. Um, I was writing some 12 years ago, and the first article I authored was titled "The Lagerman's Mentality," and it made some buzz. And that's when I realized that maybe I have something in this writing. and I started to read some more and started to write some more, and people were enjoying it. So, I took up on it, and slowly the book came up. I don't think that you have to be a certain profession to write. You just have to be able to, express yourself in a way that people can understand. Everybody can read it and see the point you're trying to make, or understand the story you're trying to tell. Because the most essential thing is being able to tell a story.
So, Dr. Kingsley, you make it sound so easy. I mean, you're a pharmacist, you started writing, and then people enjoyed it, you saw a need, and then boom, comes a book. I don't think is that easy. But let's go back, because I also know that you are, I'm sure it's something that you don't like to talk about a lot, because maybe in your very nature, you're a very humble man, isn't it? But tell us about how your experience in Sacred Heart College helped prepare you for this moment, because you talked about writing in the past and all that, but reading something you said when you were writing when you came to the United States, but I'm sure this began way back in Sacred Heart, if I'm not wrong.
Yes. So, in actuality, everybody who went to Sacred Heart, at least when I was there, should have, pretty firm foundation in writing, because every Saturday was essay writing Saturday. We had an hour and a half to tell a story on paper, and believe it or not, in the 12 weeks or the 15 weeks you were in school, you had to write 15 essays, at least 15 essays. So you do that so many times, and eventually it becomes second nature. You just have to learn how to tell those stories every time the need comes. For me personally, I think the experience started when I was in Form 4. No, Form 3. I was representing my house at the quiz competition. This is in school. I was representing my house at a quiz competition. And at the end of the quiz, there was a tie between my house of St. Thomas and St. Francis. And so they gave to break the tie. They gave us an impromptu speech. They said, okay, my topic was appetite. They said talk about appetite. Luckily I knew a little bit about it, so I babbled through the thing. It was like 2-3 minutes, but that gave me an opening. Because I didn't do so well in that speaking exercise. Um, I decided that I would never find myself in a position where they'll give me a topic out of the blue and I can't talk about it and I can't write about it. So that's when writing ignited in me, and I just started writing from whatever topic came to my head, and slowly it became a situation of telling stories and being able to make them understandable, and from there you build from there, and slowly you become what the book has become. Yeah.
Good. So again, that's an interesting one. I don't want to talk about the St. Thomas and St. Francis thing, but that's a conversation that we'll have at the Chester level. But you one of the things that you introduced as a national president has been your Monday quarterbacking thing, and I'm hoping that you are going to put all those little things into a book too for us to continue. The question I want to ask is, given all the experiences you have, I went to Sacred in 1984. Okay, and we had that then, the writing thing every Saturday.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering why other Chesters have not become authors like you. What do you think is the challenge?
So it's all about interest. It's really all about interest. I I realized that there's a lot you can do just by telling stories. There's a lot you can do just by telling. I'm a big movie buff. I love to listen to stories on NPR. I love to watch them as movies. I was the senior librarian. I started picking movies for my class when I was in Form 2. So I'm a big fan of written and visual media. So it's all about interest. It just so happens that you know my interest has shifted towards writing, but I'm a big proponent of storytelling.
So that is great. I mean, yes, you love stories and it's all about telling stories, but I'm wondering, I mean, after all these years, what is it that finally pushed you to say, let me get to that stage of writing a book? What was the call it the last thing that said, hey, I have to write a book?
Okay, so um, what really made me write the book is is the fact that I started having kids, and there was that need for me to tell them where I'm from. My first son is 10. He's the only one who's been to Cameroon yet, and I felt like telling him, what my experiences were, what it means to go to Cameroon, and he's been to Cameroon, but he was very young when he went, so he doesn't remember anything. But you know, that need started coming up, and every time he will meet with his friends who are also children of other Cameroonians living here, they just don't have that experience, and I looked at it and I said, but it's not just them. There are other African kids who have grown up here, who were born here, grown up here, and don't have any experience of having gone to Africa. So, I decided to try to fill that void, try to tell them what that experience is, what it means to travel to Africa for the first time, from the sights, the sounds, the smells, everything, the full experience. And I just saw that it was something that was necessary for them to have, for them to to have as a story. And I was also thinking about my African American brothers who just don't, they just don't know what Africa is about. They don't have the experience of having an African parent who can tell them these things. So I wanted to give them a book that takes them as a person, takes them to Africa in their minds, and they can touch and feel and see what the experience of going to Africa is.
So, curious, Dr. Kingsley, why? I mean, again, thank you for the work, but why do you feel compelled? Why do you think that children who are born in the United States of African parents should have some feeling of Africa? What is it that is? I mean, why don't let them just enjoy the American experience and live with that?
Okay, because okay, as parents, as African parents living in the US, we're always trying to connect our kids to where we come from, trying to make them understand that, this is your heritage. This is where your parents hail from. You have a root. You have a connection to this continent that you hear about, that you see on TV and stuff like that. And we do that in the way we dress them. We do that in the way we feed them. We do that in the way we talk to them, in the language we speak. How many times have you heard your kids say, "My parents are from Africa, but I'm from Houston. My parents are from Africa, but I'm from, Cincinnati." Those things are common because that's the experience they have. They know they have an African heritage, but besides that, they don't have anything else. So why not fill that gap? Why not tell them what the experience is, what it means to be, to go to Africa for the first time. To look, I wanted them to be able to look for these things. When you read the book, it's like a journey into Africa and be able to see these things, see what that experience really means. That's basically it.
So again, it is from the point of view of the United States itself celebrating September as African Heritage Month, recognizing the fact that within the United States there's a group of people, okay, who come have a particular heritage, and I like the connection you make with the African American conference, isn't it? Most of them, some of us live here and you meet them in DC and they tell you, I've never left DC. Even though
Yeah.
Maryland is just a stone throw, they've never left DC, you know? And so I think it's a good experience. That's a good way of entering into the book itself. The book, you know, the title, Trevor Goes to Africa. Walk us through that journey of how because you could write a good book and it's spoiled by a title, isn't it? How did you
Definitely.
at that title? And what message are you trying to pass across with that?
Okay, so I was trying to connect two worlds basically. Think about it. I think, in my opinion, one of the most famous and influential Africans right now in on media is Trevor Noah. Um, you could argue that all day, but I'm a big fan. I think what he's doing with the Daily Show is great. I think he's a very smart, intelligent. He's very smart and intelligent, and he's the kind of African that we need to support. So I'm a big fan. That's where Trevor comes from. I picked that name. Trevor comes from Trevor Noah. Going to Africa is the nature of the books. The book, the Trevor Goes to Africa, is meant to be a series. So the point is, what I'm going to try to take Trevor through Africa. Yes, he's in Cameroon right now, but I'm going to try to take him through Africa as the series progresses. So that's basically the journey that I'm trying to take the reader to.
I mean, it is interesting with that name because one would have expected you to have chosen a typical African name, isn't it? I would think that maybe some traditional African name. Trevor is from South Africa, I think. Trevor Noah is from South Africa.
Mm-hmm.
So again, in order to bridge that, did you wrestle in your mind? Should I choose Trevor as Trevor Noah, or should I choose and Enombi from United States Goes to Africa? So did you wrestle with that, and how did you finally get to it?
Yes, I did. I did. You see, like I said, I was trying to connect two worlds. It's true. The book is primarily written for these kids who live here and who have never, had the chance of going to Africa, going to Africa. Um, so I'm trying to connect them, that world. That's where the Trevor comes from. I'm trying to connect the West. So I could have just used NMB or Ashu Goes to Africa, but it would have been too African for me. So I said, okay, I want the title to connect both the West and Africa. So the Trevor part is like the West, and then going to Africa is like Africa. So that's how I kind of put the two together. So um, I did wrestle a lot with choosing a name for the book. I really did, and but eventually it was I settled on the fact that I wanted these two worlds to combine, right from the title. So I chose an English or Western name, um, to link it to Africa. Yeah.
So again, just for the sake of the audience, it's interesting that you're trying to build up two words. Don't you think that leaves the kids very confused?
No, because most of the kids here, they do have the Western names. They call them from Jaden to Francis and Trevor, and all the Western names. So I think that would they would recognize that part of the story, and then the fact that going to Africa is the other section of the story that I'm trying to tell. That this Western kid is going to Africa, and I just think that that's a better way to connect it. I'm not saying that they will not recognize names like Ashu or Enombi or Lamar or something like that. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that I wanted the title to connect both the West and Africa. That's why I chose an English name to connect it to the mainland, the motherland. Yeah.
Okay, so walk us through, because in a nutshell, when you get into it, you are. I mean, you have a 9-year-old who moves from Albuquerque, New Mexico, to Econa,
Mhm.
and then something happens. But before you get to that, let me just ask you this: why did you choose New Mexico? Why did you choose Econa? And why did you choose a 9-year-old?
Okay. The 9-year-old is easy. My son was 9 at the time, so I
Okay.
watched him grow. That was easy. I watched him grow. I helped raise him. So, you watch his experiences, you watch his curiosity, you watch everything. All of that is kind of put in the book in the form of a story. And so that was easy. New Mexico is so the book is going to Cameroon first. If you think about it, there was a time when I went to the University of Buea. Um, After I came to the US, there was a stretch of time when a lot of the students from the University of Buea were coming to New Mexico to do a program. So that's where the New Mexico connection comes in. If you read the book, I wanted people to identify it, to be able to know, to read it and feel like, yeah, this can really happen, because there are a lot of students who came from the University of Buea, just like Trevor's dad, and won a scholarship, came to New Mexico to study. So that's where the New Mexico connection comes in. And um, Econa is it felt right, first of all, because Econa is like it's just like a small town between Buea and Kumba, just somewhere in the middle there. It fitted because it had the right climate. It felt it wasn't a big city, but it wasn't a little town. You can it's one of those places where one person can have an impact. So let me put it this way: if Trevor went to Douala, for example, Douala has 2 point something million people. He would just be a drop in a bucket. So there'll be too many conflicting ideologies working on him. But if he goes to a smaller town where his presence means something, where every action that he does, there's only one school where he can go. So all the kids go there. There's only one. It pretty much puts him center stage um, when he where he finds himself. If he went to a bigger city, he wouldn't have as much influence as he does when he goes to a smaller town where everything is confined, where everybody knows each other. And the other part is Econa is like a microculture. It it spoke to me in terms of what African life is. Everybody knows everybody. We're in a small town. Everybody knows what's happening. We can come together quickly and make decisions that would affect all of us. So yeah, that's why I chose Econa. I could have chosen any other smaller city, but you know that just felt right for me.
I mean, I have a little pushback in terms of the corner factor because you are a typical African who parent in the United States who sends their kids to Africa is going to send them to a school that mirrors a certain or to a city that mirrors some little bit of your experience here, isn't it? And I mean, I started off by giving an example of a parent here whose daughters are studying in a school in Yaoundé. That would be the
Hmm.
typical experience, isn't it?
Hmm.
And so, yeah, I know it's a work of fiction, but I'm wondering whether that is really the reality in terms of who is going to leave the United States and take their kids to go live in a corner. I mean,
Okay, so
are you trying to encourage people to move beyond looking at urban life and try suburban life? Okay, that is where the real African experience is that what you're saying?
I like that. Um, you talk about your friend who lives here and has sent their kids to Cameroon to go to school and to have an experience going to school in Yaoundé. But the parents actually moved back. Why did they pick Ekona? Because the father is from there. You understand? Is from there. So that's the difference. The difference is that if you're moving to Cameroon with your kids, you're going to move to the area where you're needed. So if you decide to move to Cameroon today and you're moving as an engineer and you're needed in Manfe to build a bridge to, that's where your work is going to be. You're not going to live in Manfe and send your kids to Yaoundé. You're going to live in Manfe and live with your kids in Manfe. So that's the difference.
Dr. Kingsley, it would appear a line is having a problem. Can you hear me?
So influence of the city. I can hear you.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you very well.
Okay. So I'm sure we got interrupted at a certain point because I think there was the lines were breaking up.
There you go.
Okay. So take us back to the experience, and I was happy with what you were saying about moving back to Africa. You are going to go back to a place where you are needed.
Yes. Okay. So you're going to go back to a place where you're needed, especially if you're moving back with your kids. Your kids are going to live with you. So that's a different experience. The other thing is, if you're going to have any influence when you go back home, it's easier. It's easier for you to have influence in a smaller region where your presence can be felt than in a bigger city where, else is happening.
I think we are having some technical problems there with Dr. Kingsley's line. I don't know, Dr. Kingsley, can you hear me?
I wanted them to be in a place where they could have that.
Can you hear me, Dr. Kingsley? Dr. Kingsley, can you just check your lines, check your internet connection, and if you're on Wi-Fi, maybe plug in directly into your router rather than using the Wi-Fi, because at times it's going to be a problem. But if you are just joining us, you are on the Lambom Show, and today we are hosting Dr. Kingsley Enonjang. We're having a conversation about his book, Trevor Goes to Africa. Trevor Goes to Africa. It is a story of a 9-year-old boy who was born in Albuquerque, New Mexico. He has lived there all his life until one summer, his parents unexpectedly moved the whole family to Ekona, a small town in the southwest region of Cameroon, West Africa. Naturally, the place is very different from what he's used to, especially at school, where a kid comes down with measles on the first day. So it's interesting. Dr. Kingsley, are you back?
Yes, I'm here.
So again, we're talking about the experience, and you're trying to explain to us if somebody is traveling back to Africa, they'll most likely go to a place where, and I like the word you use, influence. That is, they'll go back to the place where they know that they can create the necessary impact. Okay, so that is why you chose Ekona, because in this case, the entire family moved back to Africa. Now, tell us about the young man. And again, you mentioned that it is from the experience of your 9-year-old child, his curiosity and all that. Now they have moved into Ekona, and first day of school, what happens?
So, I'd like your audience to get the book. Story. But
Okay, I think the connection is having a problem. Did you switch now?
Yes, I'm on my phone now. Let's see if this works better.
Okay. Yes. Okay.
Okay.
So
So yes, go ahead.
no, so I wanted you to take us with Trevor's first day in school. Something happens because it also reflects the experience we are having here.
So his first day in school, what happens is, his mom is a pediatrician, and she has a trained eye, of course. Um, she has a trained eye, and she's able to, fish out a kid just the demeanor of the kid. She comes to class on the first day, to see where a child is going to, spend the rest of his educational year, and with that trained eye, she's able to fish out a kid who doesn't look so well, and decides to take the kid out and run some tests on the kid, and she's able to find out that, okay, there's something wrong with this kid, and the kid is sick. And from there, the story develops, and she has to take the kid to the clinic and discover that the kid has measles, and she understands the implications of that. And having been exposed in that um, in that area where other kids were, she understands the importance of she understands the importance of the vaccine, of some kids not having had the vaccine, and she sees that urgency to be able to do something, and try to get every kid vaccinated. And things don't always go the way they're supposed to in Africa, and she has to navigate through that, and she has to do that with the help of the kids, because it's basically the kids who are doing most of the work. Of course, they have the support of their parents, but the kids are the ones who are really doing all the work, trying to teach children, trying to put things to happen at the level. Because when it comes to vaccinating a whole school, the government has to get involved, and with the bureaucracy in Cameroon, things don't always go as planned. So that's the whole. That's where the adventure comes in. That's where the dialogue and being able to understand how resilient some of those kids back at home are, and the things they're able to do in order to get in order to work as a team to get rid of a common problem.
So again, very interesting, Dr. Kingsley, because I am first of all fascinated by the fact that the first experience is something that has to do with health, isn't it? I mean, why did you choose measles? And why didn't you choose an experience where there is a fight that broke out in class over who is going to sit where, which is a typical experience? Why is it that you chose health? And that is scary because, again, you seem to feed into a narrative whereby Africa is always seen as the land of sickness, isn't it? And so maybe scare people again from getting down. I know the bigger plot is something else, but aren't you feeding into that narrative?
No, I don't necessarily feel like I'm feeding into the narrative of thinking that Africa always, has health problems or all of that. But the reality is, um, things that we consider normal out here, things that we consider normal, being able to vaccinate your kids, like you can't take your child to school without them having all the necessary vaccinations. The school checks and make sure that everybody's supposed to be compliant on those vaccines and stuff like that. But those things, they're not done as meticulously as they should back in Africa. That's just the truth. And sometimes those inactions have consequences, and those are some of the things that I'm trying to show. But if you read the book, it's true that they have to navigate through first this first book is talking about vaccinations and how to navigate through getting a whole school vaccinated. But the bigger theme here is the fact that the kids were able to work as a team. The kids were able to come together, share out responsibilities amongst themselves. We're talking about 9-year-olds. Share out responsibilities, do research, come back and, you know, and execute on their actions in order to get the results that they're looking for. And it's the teamwork that I'm trying to the teamwork is the main theme here that I'm trying to showcase, because I think that is the biggest shortfall in our education back at home. When I watch my kids grow, and from the time they started attending school, from preschool to kindergarten up to, fifth grade that they are today, one thing that keeps on going, that's recurrent, is the fact that everything they do right from pre-K, they're shared out into groups. They're not big on individualism. They're big on groups. They're big on everybody, you know, kids participating as a group. You share out the work within that group. There may be a leader within the group, but everybody tends to participate, and the goal is to get a result that will be beneficial for everybody. So it's that group work, being able to work as a team, that is most important for me. That's what I'm trying to showcase in the book. And if you notice, when Trevor starts to work on the vaccine problem, the first thing he does is pick out a team, because he knows that he can't do everything by himself. And you see how in the book, these kids in Cameroon, they pick up on that teamwork, and they do their part of the work, so that the results that they get, everybody within the team is happy about it.
So that looks like a tall order, isn't it? 9-year-olds getting into teamwork and trying to achieve results, and you could see the pushback, isn't it? But I mean, again, is this just aspirational? Are you trying to set this up as an ideal that should be, because typically, I think we may be exaggerating if we put it in terms of this is how every school looks like. The typical 9-year-old in Cameroon should be looking forward to getting into college already, or they are in class 5 or class 6 in primary school, isn't it? Most of us who came to second we came in maybe 10, 11. But I'm wondering, team spirit, and then look at the issue. It's a major issue, a major health issue. Measles, vaccination. I mean, how do you inculcate this spirit in a 9-year-old child? Isn't that asking too much for a 9-year-old child?
That's the beauty of teamwork. That's the beauty of teamwork. You see, you don't have to answer all the questions when you're in a team. You just have to be able to do your share of the work, and then you have to be able to include the other people who are supposed to take care of the parts that are, the parts that you can't do. So as a
Go ahead.
okay, so as a team of 9-year-olds, they're able to do some research on the measles. They're able to present to their peers, to their schoolmates, what measles is all about. Talk to them in a language that they can understand. Explain, all those things. That's the part that they're able to do. The other part that needed adults to take care of, they're able to pass on that responsibility for the adults to take care of. But it's because they were able to organize themselves and do their share of the work that they're able to pass on the responsibility that the adults are supposed to do onto them, and hold the adults accountable to do that in order for them to get the results that they were looking for. So yes, it's a little aspirational, but when you think about it, there's really nothing you can achieve when you work as a team. And that's the biggest lesson I've learned from watching my kids go to school, how they perform and everything. They're really, there's a lot of emphasis on working as a team, being able to contribute, everybody's held to a certain standard in order that we can all reap the benefits of something that we've worked for together. So yeah, it may seem like a tall order, but it doesn't have to. The order doesn't weigh completely on the 9-year-old. The 9-year-old just has to do his part of the order, and then pass on the responsibility onto the others who are supposed to do theirs.
So tell us, I mean, I just meant this to be a teaser because again, we have to talk for people to really go buy a copy. It's a fascinating read. Okay, you really want to, So I want to find out from you, your audience. What was the audience you were considering when writing this book?
So I was trying to look at my primary goal was to reach kids from that 9 to 16, 9 to 16, 9 to 17 before they go to college here. Mainly because those are the kids, those are the formative years. Before you get into college, you already have a firm foundation of what you're looking for. My ultimate goal is to be able to give some exposure to the kids back in Cameroon, give some exposure to the kids back in Africa, so that these kids over here feel like they can connect with these kids back at home, and they can work together. They can, now the world is becoming, global village. I'm sure there are kids back in Cameroon who are able to follow this interview, and that just opens up it opens up a whole new chapter of communication between us, our kids here, and the kids back at home. I want there to be that kind of connection where they can work together, where they don't see any barriers with working with each other, and have an open mind of the kids back at home and feel like, all the things that I can do here, there are kids back home who can do them as well. And we can create that connection and work together at a certain level. Yeah.
So again, let's get to the process, because there's one thing having an idea. Being a pharmacist means that you are used to a certain jargon, isn't it? Scientific jargon. And I know that you have gone through a certain writing process through secondary school. But then with that kind of an audience, because just looking at it, you have to break down this fiction in a language that is understandable by kids of a certain age. And I'm wondering how you walk through that, because for some at your level, the writing comes with some ease because you have done it over and over, and then you are expected. There are some words that you're already used to, but for these kids, so each page, 108 pages, okay, you are taking time to make sure that this is something that is understand. How did that happen? How do you succeed with that?
So yeah, thanks to the editors, of course. But you have to be conscious when you're writing. You have to be conscious about your audience. Luckily, when I was doing the bulk of the writing, I wasn't working. It just so happened that during that, I had a 4-month or 5 months break from work, and I decided to put all that energy into writing the book. So yes, it does take it takes a lot of research. Sometimes I would have to, read back, go and change some of the words to break them down. And I really like to break things down to the simplest way possible. There's something you learn when you go through pharmacy school in this country. They teach you to communicate at a 5th level stage. So everything you say has to be understood by someone with a 5th grade education. So that is already a foundation where you can build from. So whatever medical jargon I have in my head, I have to be able to break it down in such a way that a 5th grader can understand it. So yeah, it took a little bit of adjustment. It took a little bit of research, but eventually, you have to get into that mindset of a child. And sometimes I would call my son in. I'll read it to him just so he can tell me what he thinks. and he would, some words he'll be like, "What is that?" And then I'll have to break it down and then find a better word that he would understand.
So therefore, you have done us. You have done. We need to invite your son. You needed to have put his name there as a co-author because again, you just took that off me because I was going to ask you the role your son, the 9-year-old, played in the writing process. Because that should be like this, the sounding board, isn't it? You can play it back to him, and then he sounds it, and you are able to do that. And I think it's a great exercise, in order to do that. You just mentioned something which was, I was really hoping you're going to touch on it, the fact that you could only do this, not only you did this because you had the opportunity to have 4 months or 5 months of work. And therefore that kind of writing and work balance was not a challenge for you, isn't it? And so for somebody who is nursing this desire to write a book but has this challenge, they have to go to work, come back, and they have a family to take care of. What advice would you offer?
Okay, so you already know that I write every Monday, right?
Correct.
You already know that.
Yes.
Good. So it's part of the training. It's part of the training for me. There was before I started doing MNQs, Monday Night Quarterbacks. I was writing inspirational pieces for my class every Wednesday. We called it Inspirational Wednesday, and it was basically me just taking a friend and telling their story in an inspirational manner. So I made the conscious decision that even if I don't have to sleep, I have to put out one article every Wednesday. So that is the work that went into it. And it was a building process for me. I did it for over a year. And slowly, it gets easier with time. Right now, when I'm writing my MNQs, sometimes I don't even have a topic before 11 p.m. on that Monday, and something would just happen, and I'll just sit there and I'll produce a page of writing. But that comes with practice. So it's repetition, man. It's repetition. You have to carve out a time where you are where you hold yourself accountable to doing this on a regular basis. So I don't know how many people read the MNQs, but I've made it a point to always have one on a Monday.
No, I mean, for me, it's when I don't have it, is I'm sick. Okay, and I've gotten to know some people. In fact, I belong to a community. I'm sure you know that the Southern Cameroon's Medical Society, and I had one of the medical doctors talking about it. I'm like, how do you know about this? And he said it's a Shesan. I'm saying, no, I never knew you're a Shesan, isn't it? But again, these are little things that build up. And the reason why we're going through all this is because there are many people who have these talents. Okay,
Yes.
they are just I don't know. There's something that prevents them. There's always, you have excuses, you have things that will always block you. But what I hear you saying is, once you're able to commit to it, okay,
Yes.
then you let the daily thing become your training, your school, and before
That's
you know
right.
it, it's gone, isn't it?
It's gone.
What,
That's
what,
right.
was what was the most difficult part for you writing this book?
Oh, the most difficult. It's rereading it. It's rereading it. I had a friend when I was going through it. I had a friend who every time I was reading it again, she was like, "You're reading it. You're reading it again." I'm like, "I'm reading it again." I read it, I don't know, 20, 25 times because you have to pick out the errors. And every time you read it, there's a new error you have to pick out. There's a new place you have to adjust. You have to, the story has to flow. It's the rereading and rereading and rereading. The writing part, once you get into it, it's just typing. But it's being able to read it and make sure that it can flow. Make sure that someone who's reading it, you can keep their interest all through the book and not, go through spaces where they're just like, okay, what's going on here? Yeah, it's that was the difficult part, being able to, because I'm not a fast reader, but you have to commit to reading and reading in order to catch all the errors and adjust and make sure the story flows. Yeah.
So that's interesting. because I thought you were going to mention the fact that writing a fictional story is quite difficult, isn't it? Because it's imaginative. It would have been easier for you to think about. You have heard stories of people who have gone back to Cameroon, their kids who have had very nasty experiences. That would have been very easy. Why would you fiction? I mean, why did you choose fiction?
Well, it's we're aspiring for something, right? I told you already that we're the goal is to create an avenue where these kids can connect with the continent, connect with the kids who are in the continent. So yes, some people may have had bad experiences, but that that fits into the narrative in some way. But when you're telling a story that you want to be, inspirational and aspirational, you have to go a little fictional. You have to think through it. You have to, carry the message in such a way that it can be interesting to the child who's reading it.
So again, for me, it's clearly that the fiction was not the difficult part, isn't it? It was more getting back to it. But you work with a team of editors. I mean, walk me through that. So you have written the book, you are rereading it, making sure everything, the suspense and all that is in place. But then getting the book out to the market, what is that process like?
Oh goodness. Okay. So yeah, once the book is written, I think one of the reasons why it took so long for the book to come out was I sent it to, I sent it to two editors. I sent just two paid editors and a bunch of unpaid editors, a bunch of friends who, I even sent it to somebody who had expertise in a corner who read the book and sent it back to me and said the weather isn't right. You have to change the weather. The soil, I'm serious. The soil color you're talking about is not a Kona soil. I'm serious. That in September it's not this is not the temperature of a Kona in September. You have to change it. So and you have to get all these details right because you don't want somebody who has lived in that area to read it and be like, I don't think this guy's talking about Ikuna, you know. So yeah, so yeah. But after all of that, luckily I was working with a publisher, a local publisher here in North Carolina. So I was able to go back and forth, and yeah, that experience of publishing was not as difficult as I expected it to be. But yeah, it was pretty challenging for a first book. I think the second one would be a lot easier, but the first one was pretty challenging, yes.
I know that writing, if it's just for pleasure, you can write and put it out. I mean, again, the other thing that in my attempt to advertise the show today, I was like, why would an African be writing a book meant for Africans who hardly read? What is it? Because again, aren't you looking at the market, isn't it? Because I guess one of the challenges, if you want to dedicate time to do something like this, again, you are thinking about, hey, how about the financial part of it? You are going to put in time, you are going to spend money in order to publish the book, but what is the return on that investment for a community that hardly reads? And I can share this with you, and this is no criticism of anything. I reached out to 5 Shesans, okay, to say, hey, I'm trying to get a copy of this book because the show is coming up and the time frame that Amazon is giving me is going to be like 10 days. Do you have a copy? No. Do you have a copy? I'm talking about 5 people. And this is something that it's on. So I'm wondering, isn't that, doesn't that defeat the purpose? Or
No, just because people don't have that habit of always reading doesn't mean you're not going to put out writing. Um, the, for me, what's important is being able to pass on that message. Yes, yeah, everybody's not going to read it, but once the message is out there, once the story is out there, the story is out there, and those who read it it will have the impact that it's supposed to have on them. And I have to say this as well. Trevor Goes to Africa is the book. In my opinion, is just the beginning of the journey. I think that eventually we're going to get to, to a place where we'll either have a movie on it or a cartoon series on it, something like that. But that's something that's still in the works. But I think that what starts that journey is putting out the story in the first place, and then slowly we will build on that story to expand it to other forms of media. Hopefully a movie, or hopefully a cartoon series or something like that. Yeah.
If you're just joining us, you are on the Lambom Show listening to Dr. Kingsley Enonjang, a pharmacist and an author, talking about his book, Trevor Goes to Africa. Now, Doc, I'm interested in the vaccine part of it. I'm wondering, vaccination within the context of the current conversation, isn't it? Without getting political. Again, for most of us Africans, the waters have been murdered. Because every time you hear about vaccination, it's as if they are our population is...
they're trying to dwindle our population, yes.
Yeah, so this is an attempt. And so, yes, I know that this, in order to start off a conversation with Keith and all that, but within the context of the current conversation, this book was published in March.
Mm-hmm.
That's when this coronavirus everybody was now coming to terms with it, isn't it? And
that's right.
Attempts at vaccine. So I'm wondering, did this play any part? Did you think about the fact of vaccination, the vaccines becoming an interesting, or call it controversial discussion? Did that feature in your thought process in including that in your book?
Well, so I wrote the book between August of 2019 and maybe August and November or something like that. By then, when I started the book, there was nothing like coronavirus in the world. So it really didn't fit into this conversation. But as time, when the book got published, it struck a nerve, because there were a lot of things that were similar to what was going on in the world at the time. I chose vaccines because, that's a common problem. My aunt used to have a primary school in Douala, and that was a common problem. There were kids who came in because they didn't have the vaccines, and you couldn't send them away. They were putting other kids in the school at risk, but it was just the reality of what was happening. So picking vaccines, first of all, I'm a healthcare professional. So picking vaccines to me was easy. This is what is happening. This is a common problem back home, and it needs to be addressed. It needs to be addressed in one way or the other. So that's why that was easy. Okay, measles. I think I chose measles because of the ease of spread. Measles can infect. It can infect a school in a click of a finger, because of one person within that milieu who has it. So it just made for a good read in terms of, the speed with which things were supposed to move, the actions that were supposed to be taken within as a community, and all of that. That just made for a very good story.
Again, if you are just joining us, you're listening to Dr. Kingsley Enonjang. He's a pharmacist, he's an author. We're going to talk about CHESA because there are a couple of things I'd like for you to address as national president. But the audience, there are a couple of people who, Marilyn Dua has been making some comments. Greetings to my baby brother. Tell Eno I'm very proud of him. Lillian Dangam, congratulations on the book. Our son read and enjoyed it. He likes that it was set in Cameroon. He would like to ask the author how long it took for him to write the book. Already we know that. 4 months, 5 months?
Yes.
Marilyn again, oh my God, is it available on Amazon? Yes, we're going to talk about that in a minute. We're going to talk about the link. Then she says, well, we talked about this already. Does this story not solidify the stereotype that Africa is the land of disease? We talked about that already. There's bureaucracy everywhere, especially here in the US. when you have to massively vaccinate kids in school, isn't it? I mean, it's a problem. There are parents who have decided to homeschool their kids for the simple reason that there's an insistence that they have to vaccinate the kids. And they're like, so the problem of vaccination in Africa is different from the problem of vaccination in the United States, isn't it? The people who are against vaccines in Cameroon are not against it for the same reason as those in the United States. So either way, there's always going to be a problem.
True.
So Ethel, again, I'm coming. Ethel is asking for a copy. I'm going to put that up. We're going to talk about that in a minute. Ethel, be welcome. Alucia's through. Congrats on your new book, Doc. Ethel says she didn't know you were an author because I think she's in North Carolina with you, and surprisingly, she doesn't know that you're an author. But again, let's get back to it. Do you have a copy there, Doc? Can you read one passage, one of the most interesting passage, one that you think everybody, if somebody wanted to read just one page of it, what would be the most interesting? Read one passage for us from that.
Okay, just give me a minute.
Okay. So again, you're on the Lambom Show, and we are having an interesting conversation with Dr. Kingsley Enonjang, who recently authored a book, Trevor Goes to Africa. We are waiting for Dr. to read a passage from the book, one we consider the most interesting passage. Meanwhile, I'm going to put up how you can get a copy, and I'm going to talk about why you should get a copy. You get a copy today. Did you find the passage for us, Doc?
Yes, I did. Okay. All right. So this is when so the community, so they found out that this, there's an outbreak of measles in the school, and Trevor's parents have decided that they should have a meeting with the community to figure out, how they were going to go about, getting vaccines for the kids in school, because it turns out some kids were vaccinated, some were not. The school didn't have any records, so they decided that, hey, if we don't know who's vaccinated and who's not, why don't we just do a massive campaign and have everybody get the vaccine? The kids who can show proof that they've had the vaccine can skip it, and the kids who haven't can have the vaccines. So they were having a meeting at the community hall, and since they were having some pushback on trying to get those vaccines from the government, they were trying to brainstorm on what to do to push the government to give them the vaccines. And so this is a passage. This passage, it happens while they were having a meeting. And remember that the book is written from the perspective of Trevor's little sister. So Trevor's little sister is the actual author, and she's the one who's telling the story. So when I read it, put yourselves in her shoes, or put yourselves in her mind. All right, so here we go. How about a march? My brother asked. We can organize ourselves and march in front of the delegation. Certainly, that will get their attention, continued the little boy. I have seen a lot of instances on the news where for people to get the attention of the government, they march in close. It took a minute for what Trevor said to sink in. Father was smiling at this boy because he knew exactly where that came from. Even I knew where that came from. I remember them having this conversation when the crisis in Ambazonia started. Ambazonia is the name given to the English section of Cameroon, which comprises of the northwest and the southwest regions. I remember him clearly explaining to his son, his 10-year-old boy, that the people of Ambazonia were disgruntled with the government, so they went out to protest peacefully for better living conditions. I could not understand what they were talking about at the time, but I remember that conversation. Father knew that that was what Trevor, that is where Trevor got that idea from. As father stood there looking at him, at his son, and smiling, mother was looking at father and frowning. Then everyone shifted their attention to father while asking themselves where a kid that young got such an idea. Finally, someone broke the silence and laughed, saying that protest marches do not work the same way in Cameroon as they do in the US. He said that in Cameroon, people get shot just for protesting on the streets. The statement jolted father from his seat. He stood up to defend his son. I think my son is right. Remember, we're not protesting bad governance. We are not demanding freedom or anything close. We're just asking the delegation to hurry up and give us the vaccines we have ordered before an epidemic hits our community. Besides, we will not be the ones protesting. The kids from the school will be the ones protesting. I do not think the government will send the army to come and shoot down kids who are demanding vaccines so that their school is not engulfed in an epidemic, explained the father for his brave son. Some people were still not convinced. Cocoyams may sound like yams, but there's a reason why they also carry the name cocoa, someone said, meaning generally all governments are supposed to protect their people, but and are not supposed to behave a certain way. But one cannot put anything past the Cameroonian government. They quoted examples of many kids who had been killed by the government soldiers in the Amazonian conflict. They quoted instances of government soldiers acting with impunity towards unarmed civilians, in one case, killing a baby who was only a few months old. Still, someone pushed back that the father was right. That it's funny I picked this section because it talks about the Amazonian conflict as well. But yeah, that's a little bit of what the story looks like.
So again, you just opened up a different chapter in this whole thing, because I was going to say that in terms of marketing, that is why I started off my intro by saying we read The Good Foot, isn't it?
Yeah.
We read The White Man of God. Why should we not be reading Trevor Goes to Africa? Okay, that should become mandatory reading for kids in the United States as well as kids in Cameroon. But then you just spoil your own market, because the government of Cameroon is not going to let kids read about Amazonia. Why would you introduce that into the narrative?
History is what it is. I don't know why there's so much static. Okay, is it better?
Yes.
Okay, history is what it is. I'm not going to ignore it. I'm not going to ignore it because that's the reality right now. Whether we like it or not, Amazonia is here to stay. It is what it is. You may call it what you want, Southern Cameroons, whatever it is, but that's our heritage. That's Econa is in the southwest region, is part of Amazonia. So there's nothing we can really do about it. That's the history of the people.
Wow. So I mean, have you made any attempts at getting into the school system in North Carolina with a copy and saying, hey, my kids go to school here, and I think it's time for you guys to consider this to become kind of compulsory reading for kids?
Yes, I have. I've started the process. It's a long process to get the book into required reading for the school, but I've started the process. Hopefully it becomes successful. So yes, that process has started.
So many people are asking, how can they get a copy of the book? So can you tell us?
So you can find it on it's on Amazon, definitely on Amazon. You can also find it on Barnes and Noble online. Yeah, or if you Google it, there's so many. Yeah, it will take you straight to Amazon where you can order it from.
So again, you talked about this being a series, and it's a book that may eventually turn to a movie. So does that mean you're already considering the second country? Are you moving to Nigeria from here, or where is Trevor going to next?
Well, Trevor has the next story. The next story is going to showcase something different. But I think Trevor has maybe a little more time in Cameroon before we move to the next country. So yeah, we're going to travel Africa with Trevor for sure.
So again, you mentioned at the beginning that this is more building up team spirit, isn't it? And I'm encouraging parents. I think those that I see online currently, all of them are parents. If you have not gotten a copy, I would encourage you to get a copy, to read the copy as a family. Okay, take it, buy a copy, gather your kids, and already my daughter, my 9-year-old daughter, saw the picture, the one that you have on the title, and that was fascinating. She said, I want to read this book. What is it talking about? Okay, but I think that if we read it as a family, it is going to, again, that team spirit. Everybody takes a turn in reading. Yes. So I'm really encouraging, because again, for most of us, we don't encourage our own. This is a book that is written by a Cameroonian, okay, who has lived in the United States. He's a pharmacist. He's not an idle man. He has spent time, energy. And this is a book not just for us, but also for our kids. And for me, that's important, because you could have a book written just for adults. You know, we all want to, we feed into this 24 hours news cycle. The gossip columns and all that, they are fascinating. This one has taken this one's husband and all that. Yes, those are fun. But here we have something that is interesting for the entire family, both parents and kids. Why not spend time? And I'm challenging every ex-student of Sacred Heart College, Mancon, who is on the Shesa USA group, the WhatsApp group. This is our national president. I expected by now that we should have been having book reviews on this. And I'm challenging everybody. Let us support our own. I have nothing against the president of the United States, the current president, Donald Trump. He says, make America great again. We don't know when America was ever great, but one of the things that he has said is, learn to consume local products. And this is an opportunity for us to come out and support a brother who has written a book, not just for adults, but for our kids as well. So everybody go get a copy. Grab a copy. And I'll say for Shesans, if you're on a Yahoo group, WhatsApp forum, grab a copy and come and post it so that we can see. And it's not just about grabbing a copy. It's about grabbing a copy and spending time reading it with your kids. Now, let's talk about this group that you lead, Shesa USA. An interesting group, and the journey has been interesting for the last 2 years. Since you took over, it has been a challenge. Where is Shesa USA currently?
Maybe you should start by introducing where Shesa was before I took it over.
I'll let you have that conversation.
Well, the truth is, Shesa is going places. It is really an honor to lead an organization like Shesa. Never in my wildest dreams did I foresee this, and I still feel like it just got dropped on my lap. But it is what it is. When the responsibility is handed on to you and people count on you, you have to step up to the plate. So where's Shesa at the moment? Shesa is a positive-looking organization. Our books are positive. Our membership is growing. We're getting back to the things that we do best. Last week we had an awesome show online on Zoom and Facebook, and the people just didn't want to leave. It took us 5-6 hours to do a 2-hour show. It was an amazing time spent with people all around the world. And that came from Shesa USA. And we're continuing to build on a lot of other things. We're starting to have influence the way we're supposed to. We're starting to have influence back at home. We're looking at putting a presence back in Mancom, where we come from, so that it's Sacred Heart does not become just a relic. Sacred Heart becomes an icon, and Shessons become an envy. That's the whole point. The point is to, you know, keeping with that teamwork, keeping with that teamwork, working with a team that's going to showcase what Shessons are all about and advance Shessa as a community and advance Cameroon as a community.
So for the sake of those who, I mean, I'm sure many people are hearing, what is Shessa? You know, and they are wondering what we are talking about. We just presume that everybody should understand what Shessa is. But again,
so,
go ahead.
Shessa is a Sacred Heart Ex-Students Association. The one that I lead is the one here in the US, Shessa America. It's an organization that's, you know, over 50 years old. Started in Cameroon, and it's morphed into, you know, something global. There are branches all over the world, and you know, the one in America is basically second to the one in Cameroon. That's you know, that's where the mother organization is. So for those who don't know, it's just an ex-students association, and we're working together as one group to influence, you know, to influence the way kids are brought up in Cameroon, to influence the way kids perceive the world, the way they are going to function in our country, and see that they do a much better job than we did when we were growing up.
Okay, Doug, again, for the remainder of the time, I think we have been on for 1 hour 17 minutes. So let's spend the last talking about the book. That is why we are here. So
that's right.
Now, in all of this, what was the best part of this experience for you?
So I think that as an author, the best part about it is the feedback you get when people read the book. I'll give you a few of them. I have a friend who lives in town. He read the book. He read the book by himself before even introducing it to his children. And he came back when I asked him, "What'd you think about it?" And he told me it reminded me of Things Fall Apart. And I felt so honored, because Chinua Achebe, to be compared to Chinua Achebe is a big deal. It's a really big deal. And that's the feedback that I'm getting. I like what you said about reading the book as a family. It's funny because most of the people who have bought the book, they have read it as a family with their kids. They've gone through, because there are a lot of things there that you as an adult, you would read and you would feel nostalgic about it. You would feel that, you know, I relate to this. Yes, your kids would understand it, but they wouldn't relate to it the way you related to it. And if you take that time to actually share your experience with them, share what that memory has sparked in you, it just creates a really good family time. I read the book myself. I read after publishing it. I read it with my children. All three of them. We carved out some time every day, and we would read a chapter and talk about it, and I would, you know, explain further and stuff like that. So they are very involved with both the writing and both the experience of having read it. So it is really good for people for your audience. If they haven't gotten the book, please get one, and just don't get it and give it to your child. Read it with them. Read it with them, and I guarantee you, it would spark something in you and spark something in your child, and you will be able to connect at a deeper level. And that's the experience that I'm hoping for.
Again, within the context of COVID, I know it is not easy to do this, but have you considered doing a book tour?
Yes, yes. So that was now you're getting me back to I had a publishing team already. We were already working on what to do to market a marketing team. Sorry, we're already working on what we're going to do to market, how we're going to do a book tour and all of that. And then COVID hit, and everything just got shelved. It's it's difficult to connect to people on Zoom like this. It's if you have an auditorium full of 9-year-olds and 10-year-olds, you can walk in there, pump up the energy, and do some fun stuff and read and tell stories, and they'll look at you with wanting eyes, and all of them will go back and buy that book. That experience is what we were trying to give to these kids. But with the COVID, we've just shelved that, and we're trying to do online, most of what we're doing right now. It's not quite working as we had hoped, but I don't think it will be too late to market the book whenever things get normal. So when things get normal, I think the plan is to get on the road and try to sell this to everybody who can and who will read. Yes.
So again, ladies and gentlemen, you have been listening to Dr. Kingsley Enonjang, a pharmacist and an author. We have been talking about his book, Trevor Goes to Africa. And I saved this question for the end because you mentioned Trevor Noah. Have you sent him a copy? Did you tell him, have you told him his name is, he inspired you, isn't it? And that is why you were able to write a book and give it that title. Have you thought of him being your chief publicity officer?
Yes, I have sent him a copy. I have sent him an autographed copy. I haven't heard back from him though, but I have sent him an autographed copy. Yes.
That is great, and I think that you were smart in choosing Trevor, even though I would have preferred a more typical African name. Even that's just me who cannot publish a book trying to talk about somebody who has published one. But again, I really believe that there are many authors within our community who are just not taking advantage of the opportunities. And here we wanted to highlight the experience of one of us who has taken the time, devoted his energy, marshaled the resources, and now has a book on Amazon. Isn't that great? How else can we celebrate Dr. Kingsley other than going to buy a copy of that book? And I'm sure that people can reach you. I don't know how people can reach you so that they can get an autographed copy. I don't know if that's possible. Given the way things are, if people wanted to get a copy directly from you, what should they do?
If they're your audience members, you can send them to me. You know how to reach me.
Okay.
Yes.
So again, ladies and gentlemen, if you want an autographed copy, and I can promise you this, I can also walk around having Dr. Kingsley read to your family one chapter or one page just to inspire the kids. We can always walk around that. Everybody is always inspired when they find an author doing it himself. I know that.
Let me interject there. So I have a little video of a kid in Missouri who read the book. Currently, he's reading it for a second time. He's in school now, but at his spare time, he's going back to read the book for a second time. And the reason why he's reading the book is because he wants to learn the pidgin phrases that are in the book.
That's interesting.
He wants to learn the pidgin phrase. He was so excited when his father brought him the book. He didn't put it down until it was done. And when he was done, he made a video and sent it to me just to thank me for the book, for taking him through that experience. And he was so excited about it. And that he has been one of my biggest fans since those book came out. So there's another video of a kid. There's another video of a kid who, this is a 9-year-old kid who she decided to have her own talk show, just like you have, and her own YouTube channel. and she was talking about the books that she read during the summer. And she'll pick one and say, you have to read this, you have to read this, you have to read this. And when she came to Trevor Goes to Africa, she said, oh, and one other book. This book is Trevor Goes to Africa. It's written by Dr. Kingsley Enonjang. She pronounced my name properly. And she said, it's a book about vaccines, and the kid goes to Cameroon. And in the end, what she said was, it's the best book I've ever read. And
Wow.
that really warmed my heart. It was a warm feeling just to listen to that. And we have to give our kids these kinds of experiences, because most of them don't have these experiences. And when you read the book, and my sister read it and said the book is very detailed, like you touch on everything. You can literally feel like you're walking in Cameroon when you read the book. So those are some of the experiences from the people that have read it. And if you get the book, I think you'll get the same experience.
What is it? I mean, I know it's kind of a terrible question to ask. What material did you leave out from this book, and why?
What material did I leave out? Well, you can't write everything. So yeah, there are some details in it that, I would just summarize, like, getting a license to open a clinic. That's a process, but no 9-year-old wants to really go through, getting a license to open a clinic in Cameroon. That's a process. So I would just kind of gloss over it. And if you're reading it as someone who's very peculiar or very particular, you'll feel like, oh, I didn't spend enough time on this part, which, this doesn't look very realistic, because, you can't just get a license to open a clinic just like that. But, those are some of the things that for the sake of fiction, you kind of summarize and you make it not as interesting. So just to keep the story going. Because if you had to include everything, the book wouldn't be 108 pages, it would be 308 pages. Still there?
Hello. So again, I was saying that the book is fascinating. Okay, if you just want something to spend 2 days just reading some good stuff, you will pick it up and you will not want to put it down. I want to thank everybody who's been on. Daniel Egberg, great conversation, guys. Enonjang, you're looking like a prof. Where is the gray beard coming from? Bliss, Tomo, good stuff. Proud of you, Dr. Kingsley. A nice interview, Lambert. Afro Dog House, congratulations on your book, Michelle Kingsley. Fantastic interview. Any last words, Dr. Kingsley?
I'll go back to Trevor. The big thing about Trevor is teamwork. With teamwork, there's really, really nothing we cannot achieve. It's just being able to share out our responsibilities and feeling like, you have a part to play. You have a part to play. I think that we as Africans, we need to recognize the fact that we have a part to play in the way our kids grow up, in the way the kids back in Cameroon look at us as their elders, as their elite. We have a part to play. So let's all take that responsibility and take it seriously and learn how to work as a team to, achieve the goals that we want to set for ourselves.
So again, thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. It's been a fantastic opportunity for me. And I want to thank you as my president, the president of Shesad National, giving me the opportunity to, have a taste of your book on my show. And I'm encouraging everybody, many people are asking online, please go to Amazon, just type the title of the book. That's the only Trevor Goes to Africa you'll find on there. And again, $15. Man, you can't beat that. For me, it should have been $25 just with the information that you have on it. But hey, Thank you. And like I said before, this is an opportunity for us, if for no other reason, the fact that it is written by a Cameroonian is enough for you to get a copy. And we are not just saying get a copy, read it. Okay? You all have friends, you all have families, you all have kids. We all know little kids. You want to give them a gift? Buy a copy of this. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you. It's been a wonderful morning, wonderful afternoon. And Dr. Kingsley, let's keep the conversations going. If you need a copy, autographed copy, you want Dr. Kingsley to sign your copy, just reach out to me and we'll be able to arrange that. Once again, it's been a great Saturday, a great way to start off this day, this weekend, and I wish you the best. Thanks, and until then, see you again.
Thank you. Thank you for the time and thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you.